It's the Norm Pattis Show on WICC 600 AM and 107.3 FM. Let Norm know what's on your mind. 203-333-9422. Now, here's Norm Pattis.
You know, last week I had a sentencing in federal court in Hartford. Our next guest is David Weiss. He is, I believe, the creator of the Flat Earth podcast. A friend of mine contacted me and said, you ought to have this David Weiss guy on. He's pretty interesting. And as luck would have it, I had just read a book by Kelly Weil, W-E-I-L-L, called Off the Edge, Flat Earthers, Conspiracy Culture, and Why People Will Believe Anything. Welcome, David. How are you?
Hey, thanks for having me, Norm. Glad to be here, and happy that you're open for this conversation. Don't expect you to believe me, and I'm telling nobody, don't believe anything I say. Go verify this stuff yourself.
So, you know, this will be a wide-ranging thing, and I want to play straight with you, David. We didn't do a pregame warm-up beforehand. You're calling in cold. One of the questions I'm going to have for you along the way is
why the lie?
No.
Oh, sorry.
No, is really, does it matter? You know, I mean, I drove down here this morning from the Canadian border to do the show, and, you know, I was thinking about, well, what am I going to ask Mr. Weiss? And, you know, I'm watching the highway, and I'm aware that according to, you know, the findings of science, the Earth curves somewhat, and that, you know, I'm undoubtedly traveling over an arc. But it looked flat enough for my purposes, for me to get from point A to point B. And I started thinking about William James, the famous American 19th century pragmatism, who talked about ideas and talked about their cash value, their pragmatic utility. Does it matter whether, for most of us on a day-to-day basis, whether the Earth is flat or curved? But before we get to that question, I just wanted to let you know that's where I want to end up. I want to know how you found yourself in this world. What you know? One day you decided what you'd been taught was wrong, and you began a unique intellectual odyssey. How did that begin? And describe the odyssey for us. Tell us about yourself. As Homer would say to a guest coming, or as one of the Homeric characters would say to a guest coming to his village from afar, tell me where you are. Tell me about your people, why you're here, what you're looking for. You know, tell us.
I'll give you the brief condensed version. You know, I was born and raised in Fairfield County. I went to college in Connecticut. Went to Central Connecticut and UConn. And
What'd you study?
4 years of astronomy.
Wow.
I took I was marketing major and psychology, basically double major. Mm-hmm. So marketing and psychology. I went off into the business world. I was in the printing industry for 20 some odd years. Then I left the printing industry, got into the solar power industry, which is very interesting. I joined a large company here down in Port Chester, New York, and we started a commercial division. The company was sold. I started my own company with one of the founders and another key player there, and we did a commercial solar power development company, and we were the leaders in Connecticut, getting all sorts of awards. And I walked away from it all to talk to people like you, because why does it matter? Why the lie, right? And does it matter? And at the end of this conversation, we're going to dive into that. But this is the most important deception. The globe, the heliocentric matrix, is the most important deception there is right there. This is right now, because this is how they control our minds. I know this sounds crazy. Now, how did I get here real quick?
We've got the whole hour. Don't go real quick.
Yeah.
I'm going to play another card you may or may not know. You know, I have for many years represented Alex Jones, who is regarded by many as the father of conspiracy theorists. Alex is a man who I admire. I don't always trust what he says, and sometimes I'm mystified by it, and sometimes I'm thinking he's bat feces crazy, you know. But yet he's got millions of listeners, and what he's saying meets a need that people have. And I'm just looking to understand it. So I want to know about you, not to trivialize you, but you and I have different conclusions. You talked about the heliocentric matrix, basically the notion that the Earth and other observable entities revolve around the sun. This is regarded in most college humanities courses as one of the pivotal moments in the development of human consciousness. I hey, in these later days of our culture that seems to be in collapse, I'm open to just about anything. But until I read Weil's book, it just hadn't even struck me to care about whether the Earth was flat or not. So what bit you? What bit you about this?
Yeah. Well, so when all the flat earthers, and there's now many, many millions of us, and we all went in the same way, saying this is stupid, I'm going to debunk it. I'm going to prove the globe and disprove flat Earth and be done with it. And only then, when you actually look at the details and you look at what you call the science that proves the globe, you realize there is none. There's none whatsoever. And Kelly Weil's book, Kelly Weil is that is basically just a hit piece being promoted by the mainstream. It's everywhere. She's getting on every show. But there's nothing in there except straw man arguments and logical fallacies. Nothing in her book is factual. The claims she makes about flat earthers are not real. They're straw mans. They're basically arguing points that we never made. You know, like in her book, she thinks that the Earth rises. I think this is in her book, that the Earth rises at 9.8 meters per second to cause gravity. No flat earther thinks that. No flat earther thinks that we're a disk floating in space, you know, with other flat planets or round planets. No flat earther believes any of that. The thing is, I used to believe that we lived on a spinning globe, just like everyone else. It took 4 years of astronomy, and I was really good at it. And then I found out that that's just a belief. It's a religion. There's actually no science behind it. Just a guy in a lab coat, a guy in a bow tie who lies.
Well, but how about when we did the moon launch and we had people circle the globe? You know, they traveled in one side that was illuminated by the light. They went by, you know, the light waned as they rounded a corner or an edge or something, and then it was dark on the other side. And then at different times, different parts were visible. That seems to me to be fairly strong circumstantial evidence of a globe, does it not?
Yeah. Well, it is hearsay because you weren't there. And
but I mean, we're not going there because I wasn't at the founding of the Republic, but I don't think we were founded by by space aliens. If the standard is what I witnessed, I don't know much.
Do you like the movie Jaws? You like the movie Jaws?
Yeah, absolutely. Here's the best part about the movie Jaws. And DCF, if you're listening, all my kids are old now. We used to go out on Cape Cod and tread water where we couldn't touch the bottom, and I would go boom, 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 boom. And the first one to break lost. Listen, we're going to come back. We're talking to Dave Weiss about flat Earth stuff. It's going to be interesting. You're listening to WICC 600 AM, 107.3 FM, WICC600.com. David, if you can persuade me the Earth is flat, you'll have done something. Come back.
He's an aggressive advocate and a voice for freedom. The Norm Pattis Show is live, only on WICC 600 AM.
Hey, welcome back, everyone.
FM.
We're talking to David Weiss about flat Earth. And I'm sorry that I interrupt you from time to time, David. And it might have been better to do this interview live because I can't see your face, and I'm just trying to control myself and get all the questions out in time. You know, you said before that images of the Earth, taken from space were hearsay. But Yuri Gagarin and German Titov from the Soviets in April of 1961 and John Glenn in 1962, they claim to have gone into space and circumnavigated the globe, and they claim that the images are fair and accurate representations of what they saw. That's not trustworthy?
Norm, you're quoting what's being fed to you by the people that are portraying the deception. So without having video and all sorts of stuff and only having an hour with some commercials in here, we don't nearly have enough time. So let me make a couple of points to understand what flat Earth is, what it isn't. And my point about the movie Jaws was it holds up better than the moon landing holds up. Go and look at the moon landing stuff. But here's the problem. If you Google flat Earth, if you Google moon landing hoax or anything like that, you're going to get fed propaganda. You're going to get stuff that, and you won't find the real information. The place to find the real information is on my website, flatearthdave.com, and there's tons of information there, tons of information.
Flatearthdave.com. That's a site that do you generate it yourself, or do others help you with it?
Flat Earth is it's all mine, but we all work together trying to help each other, feed off each other. It's not all my content on there. I put all sorts of stuff on there. I have what's called the Flat Earth Crash Course. I challenge anyone to watch the first 3 videos on that and then present one globe proof. And if you can, just one scientific proof that we live on a globe, I will pay 3 Bitcoins. But this has been out for several years, and nobody has been able to do it yet. one proof of the globe. So
3 Bitcoins, that's almost $100,000 right now. I'm going to be on flatearthdave.com. Get those Bitcoins ready, you know.
It used to be $150,000. Let me quickly, it's going to take a minute to explain what flat Earth is. When you think of flat Earth, we've been programmed to think of a disk floating in space. That's not what it is. Norm, let me ask you a question. When it rains, where does water accumulate in a puddle? At the top of a hill? On the side of a hill?
It accumulates at the lowest location that gravity draws it toward.
Correct. And what, yes, it accumulates at the lowest part. And then what contains the puddle from flowing elsewhere? And the answer is the land that's higher than the water all the way around it. That is contains it, the land that is higher. Now, they tell us Antarctica is a continent at the bottom of a ball. They also tell us, when I say they, it's mainstream science, tells us that it's the highest plateau on Earth, that the land on Antarctica, on average, is higher than all other continents combined. I always found that interesting. Maybe that's why it's at the bottom of the ball, I thought. I didn't know. But in reality, that's not how the world is set up. If you have a puddle, the water is being contained by the land. A pond is a bigger puddle. The water is being contained by the land that surrounds the pond all the way around. A lake is a bigger pond, right? The water is being contained. If you dig out some of the land that's surrounding the water, lower than the pond, the water will flow elsewhere. So think of our world as a giant pond. And the shoreline of our pond is Antarctica. Antarctica is the shoreline of our pond. Let's put this into perspective. If we had a lake in Kansas, let's say it's 25 miles in circumference, big lake in Kansas, and there's islands in there. At the center of the lake, imagine there's a tall mountain that's magnetic, and if you get a compass out, that magnetic mountain is going to make your compass point towards the center of the lake. So if you tried to dead reckon east or west, 90 or 270 degrees on your compass, just looking at your compass, you're going to make a circle equidistant around that center, and now you just circumnavigated your lake going east or west, and you would barely know that you're turning because it's 25 miles around, okay? So you'd barely even notice it, but that's how you circumnavigate. On a flat Earth, know what you can't do? You can't head south and pop up on the other side of the Earth. You can't head south from Santiago, Chile, and pop up in Australia. And guess what?
Why can't you? I mean, how do you know you can't do that? How do you know it doesn't happen every day? How do you know that when an airline goes from one of those locations to the next? I don't know what pop-up means in that context. They didn't go around some dark edge, and they didn't surf. And a pilot in the air will see what appears to be curvature. He will see what appears to be a sun setting in the horizon. And that sun we know that sun he claims goes around the Earth, and that's why it's always setting somewhere. Because the Earth, arguably, that according to science, is a sphere that is rotating itself, creating a gravitational pull, keeping us all from flying off of it, and that is itself going around the sun, and thus the periodicity of our seasons and of time. You don't buy it.
Can I respond to?
Of course you can. No, I'm trying to really have an honest discussion there. I don't get this.
So, because you're not understanding what the model is, if you look at a globe, Santiago's down right near Antarctica, and on the other side of Antarctica is Australia. But if you look at the plane routes, the plane will fly from Santiago all the way up to the United States, all the way across to China, and then all the way back down to Australia. And that doesn't make any sense on a globe. Why didn't they just stay at the same latitude and cut across the bottom right around Antarctica or even over Antarctica? But they go all the way up to the north. But if you plot that same chart on a flat Earth map, everyone just look up the Gleason's map, which used to be in every library and every school until like the 1950s when they removed it, and draw that same line, that same route. It's a straight line.
Well, I'm aware of discussions like this with respect to the North Pole, and that it used to be that navigators didn't fly directly over it, but they do now. If that's true, wouldn't that rebut your claim that it can't be done with respect to the South Pole, so to speak?
So look at you look at a circle. So if you look up that map, the north is the inner part of the circle, and the south is the outer part of the circle. So yes, you can go over the North Pole. No one actually flies directly over the North Pole, but they come close enough, so it doesn't matter. But even on a flat Earth, if you were allowed to, you could fly directly over the North Pole. You can fly from America over to China or Japan in a straight line over the North Pole, over Alaska. You can also go east or west from New York and end up in Japan or China because you're circumnavigating that North Pole. But what you can't do is head south from Santiago, Chile, for an example, and then pop up on the other side. And I'm saying this would prove...
Has no one ever attempted to do that?
Nobody's ever done it. Now,
No, that's a different question. Has anybody ever attempted to do it and found it to be physically impossible? I'm wondering if there might be other reasons, such as no place to re-land, unusual weather patterns, perhaps violent weather patterns down there. I don't know.
That's what they claim, but the trip from Santiago to Australia or New Zealand, you don't have to go over Australia, and there's islands on the way, Easter Island. There's plenty of places to land if there was an emergency, and there's longer flights over more barren ocean in other places. So that doesn't make any sense there. So when you look at it, they don't make any sense. There's been also 16 emergency landings where, oh, my God, someone's having a baby, someone's having a heart attack, they got to land. They go like 1,000 miles out of the way to land. But if you look at it on a flat Earth map, that landing runway is right on a straight line in between the 2 points.
So what does a flat Earth map look like? I know what a globe looks like because I had one as a kid. What does a flat Earth map look like?
Just Google Gleason's map of the world. Gleason's standard map of the world.
Okay, but for radio audiences, tell us what it looks like.
Well, it looks like a flat lake with all of the continents spread out. If Australia was at 10 o'clock if it was a clock, Santiago would be at like 5 o'clock directly across from it, and Africa's in the middle, to the right of that, 90 degrees about. And you have all the northern stuff at the center of the lake, right?
So where did the world come from?
Well, that's a great question.
Do the flat earthers have a position on like the Big Bang special creation, or whether these are questions that we simply can't know because of the limitations of human reason and experience?
Yeah, the flat Earth looks like the UN map. So there you go. The flat Earth is the UN map, and the leaves around the outside were representing Antarctica. And so all of the major agencies of the world use that map.
Well, they use it because they want to have a two-dimensional surface. You can't put a globe in a book or in a report, and so the globe, when it gets sliced up, ends up looking ungainly on a flat surface. So I'm not sure that that's a persuasive argument. But
you asked. No, I wasn't using it as an argument. You asked me what it looks like. I'm telling you that's what it looks like.
Mm-hmm. And where did the world come from?
So before I became a flat Earth researcher, knowing a globe denier, if you will, I believed in evolution, the Big Bang. I believe once upon a time, nothing exploded. It became everything. And then all of the rocky bits decided to turn into rocky planets, and all of the gases accumulated into other big, giant gas balls that became nuclear furnaces, leaving a vacuum in between, which is impossible scientifically. And then lightning struck on one of these rocky planets and created DNA, which is also impossible.
Well, they created the amino acids, which eveventually combined into DNA. No, I'm aware that that research in the 1950s at the University of Chicago.
Well, let me finish the answer to the question. Is never once has anyone witnessed one animal turning into another animal, other than inbreeding, breeding of dogs between different dogs. But that. I believed all of that, which when you look at it is actually impossible. So where you asked me the question that I'm getting to, who created the Earth? Well, it's created. It's intelligently designed. We're at the center of creation. We're not corkscrewing through an infinite space vacuum, flying 4.5 billion miles a year from where we were the previous year, and the stars never changed. We're at the center of creation. So there is a creator. Who's the creator? That's your own personal journey.
They control us with this heliocentric matrix. Who are they, and what are they gaining from this control? Because I'll be honest with you, until I read the Flat Earth book, I never gave a moment's thought to whether the Earth was round or flat. It just doesn't matter to me. And so the notion that somehow somebody's gaining something out of making sure I buy globes, I mean, you got to take me there. What are they gaining? Who are they?
They're gaining control over you. What if you found out there was 100 or thousands of more continents on Earth? They only tell us about 7. What if there's more continents in our Southern Ocean? What if there's more continents beyond the shoreline of Antarctica? Go back to my analogy of a lake in Kansas.
And what if I woke up tomorrow with an ear in the middle of my forehead? I mean, what if? I mean, I'm not aware. I mean, I've read accounts of travelers and of the discoveries that took place in the 14th, 15th, 16th century. I think we've kind of stumbled upon the continents that are. Do you have any good faith reason to believe there's a continent out there that we don't know about here on terra firma?
Yes, I do.
We're going to talk about that after the break. Unknown continents, real estate bargains galore. All you've got to do is know how to find it. You're listening to WICC 600 AM, 107.3 FM, WICC600.com. We're talking to David Weiss, and he's trying to educate me about why I'm letting them deprive me of the good things in life.
Norm Pattis wants to hear from you. Give him a call, 203-333-9422. Back to the Norm Pattis Show on WICC 600 AM and 107.3 FM.
Welcome back. We're talking to Dave Weiss. FlatEarthDave.com is a website he administers. If you're having a hard time following this interview because my questions are so inept, take a look at Flat Earth Dave's website. You can win 3 Bitcoins if you can prove to him. What was it again, Dave?
1 proof of the globe for 3 Bitcoins.
If you can prove that the Earth is round by doing other than something than sending him a globe, looking at a picture, study the site. Prior to the break, you were saying you had reason to believe there were continents that the rest of us don't know about. What are those reasons? Where are they? And how do I get involved at the ground floor in investing in real estate there? The last question is obviously tongue-in-cheek.
Actually, it's the best question of all. The real question is, why are they stopping people from exploring our world? So
I'm not aware of anybody stopping anybody from exploring anything. Who are they?
I'm going to tell you exactly how that happens. So in the 40s and 50s, we started exploring Antarctica. Admiral Byrd flew out, did missions called Operation High Jump, and he flew out over Antarctica. He came back. He went on early news television with a big flat Earth map behind him, which was quite interesting. And he said there's more land beyond the South Pole, which is, what does that mean on a globe? Bigger than the United States, filled with resources that no human has ever set eyes upon. No animals are there. Nothing's there except resources, uranium, coal, oil, just massive. And then in 1959, when he did this interview, immediately they said, we're the Antarctic Treaty. And every country in the world ended up signing this treaty where nobody can go explore Antarctica. No corporation, no country, nobody. And every country agrees. During a time
why would they do that?
We're at war.
This is the time of the Cold War, when there's a zero-sum struggle for ideological supremacy in the world. Why would people agree not to explore a resource of that type to get an edge on in a global competition for dominance?
The Flat Earth, Norm. Welcome to Flat Earth. You're asking the right questions. So not only is that treaty still in place today, you can't question it until the year 2041, and nobody has. It's the longest.
Well, we're questioning it. I mean, what do you mean nobody? I mean, you mean to tell me nobody in the UN has called people to account and said, look, in the face of global poverty and the climate crisis, if there is one, and I think there is, we've got all these resources there, and forget about the fact that we've got that the treaty can't be questioned. We're going to open it up in the name of survival. Nobody's done that.
Welcome to Flat Earth, Norm. Nobody has done it. Okay, you can't do it. And if you want to go explore Antarctica, you can file permits. It'll cost you like from $200,000 to $2 million just in permits, and then they'll deny you and they keep all your money.
Here's the problem I have, Dave. Every time I hear the hair on the back of my neck stands up because I'm just a trial lawyer. I do this as a gig on the side because I love to talk to people and I'm interested in the world. But it is so incredibly difficult to prove a fact. It is in a courtroom. It is so incredibly difficult to keep a secret. The notion that there could be a continent of infinite riches, infinite, but you know what I mean, untold riches, and that there's a global elite who knows about it, and they're not permitting anybody to have access to it. I wouldn't bet my life on that. I just wouldn't.
You're a lawyer. Go look it up. It's called the Antarctic Treaty. Look it up. Wikipedia will tell you what it is. And no one is allowed to explore Antarctica. Now, people say, well, I can go on vacation there. They take you to a little island off of Santiago on a peninsula on the tip of Antarctica, just on one side. And you're allowed to go there. It's like $10,000, $20,000, $30,000, $50,000 for 3 days. And there's 100 different companies that run it, all run by the same guy. Why is there 100 shell companies running the same thing? Okay, it's completely, totally controlled. There's no independent.
Controlled by whom, though? That's the $1 million question for me.
Yeah. So it's the Council of Foreign Relations, the United Nations, the Club of Rome. These are the leading groups that rule our world, that dictate our world. Now it's going to be the World Health Organization. All of these people above governments, they run the government.
How about the World Economic Forum? Are they in there too?
The world. Yeah, absolutely. The World Economic Forum and trying to space on some of the names, but they're all there.
Klaus Schwab?
Klaus Schwab, absolutely.
How about George Soros?
Absolutely.
So here's the problem I have. Here's the problem I have.
The Trilateral Commission.
I mean, these are some of the old bogeymen of American history. I remember driving through Middle America as a kid, and, there were signs attacking the United Nations. And the press right now, not in the press because you don't see anything in the press, but online right now you can see plenty of people talking about what went down in Davos, Switzerland last week with the World Economic Forum and Klaus Schwab, and meetings of people of extraordinary wealth about how to control the planet, about what's going to happen next. You hear discussions of the Great Reset, and how, somehow our institutions and way of life, we've outgrown them, and this global elite is going to help us to I guess, get to the next step in human evolution, whatever that is. That's just too convenient for me. That's like blaming your parents, for the fact that you didn't make the high school football team. I mean, at some point, don't people just have to pick up their bed and walk and say we're responsible for ourselves? There's no them that's controlling me that I'm aware of. And if there were, I'd fight them. Well,
you're not allowed to explore Antarctica. They're hiding more land.
So give me a they're hiding more land. Land, is it? So I like land. I don't invest in the stock market because I don't understand it. If I've got two extra dollars at the end of the month, I throw it to my mortgage company and pay down principal. That's my idea of an investment strategy. Cheap land is appealing to me. Is there a public document that we can read about the estimated value of this land that they won't let us get to?
No, we're not allowed to explore Antarctica.
That's just impossible. That's just impossible. It's so difficult to keep secrets.
You keep saying it's impossible.
Well, it's like saying E.T. runs the universe.
It's not a secret. You remember the Falkland Islands War? What was that about? The Falkland Islands is an island.
I never did get that.
Yeah.
What was it?
It's a little
about?
island off. I'm going to tell you. It's a little island off of Santiago, in between Santiago and Antarctica. And there's 7 other islands that are spread out around the edge of our lake. So there are several, and they're all run by the Crown. They all have military bases on it. If you cross 60 degrees south, that's 60 degrees south longitude or latitude, you will be intercepted, and it has happened. Some fishermen tried it not too long ago, and you're intercepted by a warship. A drone is sent after you. You are radioed. You are told to turn around immediately. You're in restricted waters.
Is this like the Bermuda Triangle?
Well, the Bermuda Triangle is a whole other story. But no, you're not allowed to approach Antarctica independently. No one is allowed to go there. You're not allowed to bring extra fuel south of 60 degrees. And when you break that, you are intercepted. Now, where's proof of this? On my website, flatearthdave.com, go to the crash course, and the first video there is called The Next Level. It's a documentary movie that just came out. It's an hour and 20 minutes. Get some popcorn, get a cup of tea, whatever you like, and watch it.
I'm going to need a good stiff drink, I think.
What I'm talking about. Yeah. Well, you actually might, because when you find out everything you've known is a lie, it's kind of upsetting. But then once you understand that you're at the center of creation, the reason is, when you understand you're at the center of creation and nobody has control over you, just like you said, no one has control over you. The only control any government, anyone has over you is in your imagination, right? And it's the only control they can have over you is you giving it up willingly, right? So they don't want you to know that your thoughts create your reality.
We've never met. We're going to have to meet one of these days. But every time you say they, I cringe, because there is no they. I mean,
Well,
do
there is a
they
day.
do they get do they get together at annual meetings somewhere like this? It sounds like the Bilderberg thing that Alex Jones is talking about. I mean, it strikes me as a sort of populist conceit that makes us in effect avoid our individual responsibility by saying, we can't win because they control us. It's a rigged game. So it fosters a sense of quiescence or despair or fishing around in alternative realities that don't have a cash value.
Let me ask you a question. You're a lawyer, and the Antarctic Treaty is a real thing, and nobody can challenge it until the year 2041.
I don't know what that means. Nobody can challenge it. You can challenge everything in a courtroom. What does that mean? It can't be challenged.
How come it says it cannot be questioned until the year 2041?
That's a meaningless statement. It's a matter of law. I'm going to question it. If you find me an investor with $100,000, I will bring an action in the I will bring an action in the court of competent jurisdiction to say I want that treaty opened. Okay, you find an investor willing to come up with the legal fees, and you got your lawyer.
Nobody is going to come up with the legal fees.
Counsel of despair, because it's a rigged game. So we can't know. They've hidden it from us. We can't know, and now I have to accept on faith that they control it. Who are they? Give me a name.
Wait, why is it faith? Look up the Antarctic Treaty.
I can look up the treaty. The treaty just, it's going to have its recitals in it, just like any other law does. And the recitals may say that this treaty, it's not going to say it can't be questioned. It may say that it lapses, it's void, it's obligatory until such and such a date. But anybody can challenge anything. That's the whole point of having courts.
Hasn't been challenged successfully.
Why haven't you? Well, wait. Hasn't been challenged successfully or hasn't been challenged? That's a difference.
I'm not sure if anyone has actually challenged it in court, but it hasn't been challenged. I'm not the guy to do it.
Well, fine. I am that guy, so I'm going to look up the Antarctic Treaty. But I need to have some reason to believe that there's a lost continent out there. Are there other continents other than Antarctica that you believe are out there on the flat Earth that we haven't been able to see?
So we're under the belief that the Greeks figured out the Earth was a ball by Aristophanes 2,000 years ago, but in reality, they were teaching flat Earth here in the early 1900s.
But they were teaching a lot of things in the early 1900s in this country that are bull. And the progress of scientific knowledge is not linear. It goes by fits and starts. And, the Greeks had some insights and not others. I mean,
my point is, when you say science proves that the Earth is a globe.
I didn't say that.
Well, you were saying that science has told us that the Earth is a globe. But
there are proofs that I don't have the mathematical sophistication to understand. I can't perform the calculations for myself, right. And so I've not seen the cash value. I've not seen the pragmatic use in challenging these things. If I'm not a dumb guy. I'm rounding third, heading to home. I only have so many years left to live, but I'm doing radio because the courts are I'm losing interest in the courts. Make this my life's mission. Why should I master the science of flat Earth? And what's the pot of gold at the end of the rainbow? Why is it going to matter to me or to my neighbors at the end?
The pot of gold at the end of the rainbow is when you understand who you are, where you are, what you are, and the power that you actually have.
I already understand that based on my reading of Augustine in the New Testament and the Old Testament. I think we are created in the image of God. We're unique. We're creative. We have a tendency to sin, that our sin is love of the wrong thing, and when we sin, we're miserable.
Are you a Bible guy?
No, I'm a nothing guy. I believe in the power of grace. I believe I have been transformed by gifts from others. And when I read Augustine, I'm prepared to accept the possibility that he's right, that there is a God and that God is infinitely loving. We're going to talk more about the flat Earth and related topics with Dave Weiss when we return from the break. You're listening to WICC 600 AM, 107.3 FM, WICC600.com. When you come back, I'm going to tell you about Pattis's wager.
Got a question for Norm Pattis? 203-333-9422. The Norm Pattis Show is on WICC 600 AM and 107.3 FM.
Hey, this is Norm Pattis. We're talking to Dave Weiss. Before the break, I said I'd tell you about Pattis's wager. Blaise Pascal was a famous mathematician in the 17th century in France. He was a Catholic, and he was coming of age at the dawning of the age of reason. And he reasoned and concluded that he would gamble on a belief in God because given the dogma that he had been taught, if there was a God and eternal life, and he believed, he stood a chance of living eternally in better circumstances than if he didn't believe and found himself in hell. So it was ultimately a pragmatic wager. He wasn't persuaded necessarily by the proof, but the consequences of being wrong were such that he wagered on God. I would say in our lifetime, David, I call it Pattis' wager because I'm struck by Fermi's paradox. The Enrico Fermi, the brilliant physicist who said, in an infinitely large universe, how is it that there's life only on Earth? And it may not be shouldn't it exist elsewhere? I look at AI and the materialist assumption about the world, that is that we are simply the product of atomistic interactions, and thus our consciousness is a question of complexity. I view both as wrong. I think the Fermi's paradox is solved by creation. I think that there is something unique about the human species that can't be replicated as a matter of mere complexity. And to me, as an article of faith, it makes sense to assume creation. The notion of grace or overcoming ourselves and our perspectives and sin as the love of the wrong thing, that just seems obvious from my work as a criminal defense lawyer. So where that puts me on the religious spectrum, I don't know. But my wager is I'm wagering on the Judeo-Christian tradition because I don't think there's anything better out there right now. And having said all of that, that's a near miss to flat Earth, because to me it doesn't matter whether the Earth is flat or round on that theory. So I'm missing something,
well,
and
yeah, you're definitely missing something, and it could all be found at flatearthdave.com. Check it out. It's being hidden. Just real quick, back to my lake in Kansas. Imagine sailing to the edge of the lake. You're not going to fall off because it's the edge of the lake. You step up on the land, you start walking. Let's say you walk 20, 30, 40, 50, 100 miles, right? You can't see the lake behind you, but then you come to another lake. Well, whether there's other islands, continents on this lake, okay, that would be extra land, extra territory, extraterrestrials from where? The outer space beyond the lake. That's just a concept. I have no proof of it.
So how those who say those who say the Earth is round say it's roughly 23,000 miles at its circumference. How big is the flat Earth? Have we come to the edge of it, and what happens when you get to the edge, or is it infinite?
Great question. So Antarctica is supposed to be 10,000 to 13,000 miles in circumference. Captain Cook was the last one to try to circumnavigate the shoreline, and it took him 3.5 years. He went over 60,000 miles. That's because it's not a continent at the bottom of the ball. 60,000 miles. That's bigger than the equator, which is supposedly 24,000 miles, which would be on the flat Earth a circle halfway from the center.
But there has to be an end to it somewhere, doesn't there?
What, an end to what?
The Earth, if it's flat.
Well, where's the end of space in your infinite space galaxy? Let me ask you a question. Here's the thing. You're defending the globe.
I'm not defending. I'm asking questions. I've not cared about this until a couple weeks ago when I saw a book about conspiracies, and now you're here. So, I mean, I'm trying to get you to make me care, and I'm trying to see what's at stake on a cash value basis.
Yeah, it's finding out who you are, where you are.
I don't need to, whether it's flat, round, or rectangular. I told you who I am.
Shape doesn't matter.
No.
It's your position in the world.
Size doesn't matter. Maybe shape doesn't either. Okay, sorry. Couldn't resist.
So, do you know how far the sun is from the Earth in the heliocentric model?
I can't recall, but it's like 90.
Go ahead.
Do you
know how the circumference of the Earth?
Make your point.
My point is that if you ask a person that believes that we live on a globe, they don't know any of the physics.
I don't need to know. I just know stay out of the sun, or I'm going to get skin cancer. If I want to get a little round, get a little, it heats the Earth. I mean, I'm not an astrologist or an astronomer. None of this stuff has ever mattered to me before. And so I'm trying to get you to persuade me to make it matter.
And we've looked at everything. We know the globe model better than anyone else. And when you look at the globe model, the science doesn't work. You can't have burning balls. You can't have a high pressure gas atmosphere adjacent to a space vacuum, right? You can't have high pressure next to low pressure. No experiment ever in any lab or in nature has ever shown high pressure next to low pressure. And the only explanation you have is gravity. But gravity is ridiculous. I could take a straw with the weak vacuum or low pressure of my mouth and lungs. I could pull air and water up and away from Earth. How come the space vacuum doesn't do that?
So here's what my impression of how science works. Obviously, in the late in the early 21st century, we have vast economic power behind institutions. We have peer-reviewed journals and whatnot. But early in the 17th, 18th, 19th century, we had a lot of tinkerers who engaged in trial and error. They'd advance a hypothesis. They'd construct an experiment designed to test the hypothesis. And sometimes they were right and sometimes they were wrong. And when they put all this together, better minds tried to come up with theories that explained most of these hypotheses. And now we have physicists who try to come up with grand hypotheses that can explain it all. And no one has, and perhaps no one ever will. So I think that science is based on the trial and error method. Not every question can be answered, but it's indisputable that science has transformed the world and that we're so much better off for it.
Well, there's different kinds of science. There's technology, and then there's cosmology. And cosmology is known as scientism. But here's the thing. If you look at Michio Kaku, one of the world...
Can you spell that last name?
Michio Kaku, he's one of the world... I can't spell it.
Okay, sorry.
One of the world's best-known physicists, he says that cosmology is off by 10 to the 120th power. That's a number that's unfathomable. Okay, it says, and it's never predicted anything that has come true. It's all just made up pseudoscience. And then you say science, over time, scientists have done experiments. Yeah. Have you heard of the Michelson and Morley experiment, Airy's failure? There's a whole bunch of experiments where they went to prove axial rotation of the globe or curvature, and they all failed, proving a flat stationary Earth.
Well, the fact that's a logical fallacy right there. The fact that a theory fails doesn't prove another theory. It just means that the theory that was tested failed. What hypothesis? What experiment has proven a flat Earth?
Airy's failure proved that we're not spinning. There is no curvature. We can see too far.
Can't if you construct an experiment to prove that something is spinning and the experiment fails, it doesn't mean it's not spinning. It means that the experiment failed. There's a logical difference there.
If the Earth is 24,901 miles around, like they tell us, there should be a 6-foot drop at just 3 miles. But we can see things farther. I can zoom in on a buoy over 10 miles away, sitting at the beaches right at the water's edge. I can see that buoy, which is only 10 feet tall. It should be under 66 feet of curvature. Okay,
that's an argument that I can understand, and that figures largely in Miss Wiles's book. And she tried to explain it away, and it didn't work. What was the canal in England where one of the flat Earth?
Bedford Level.
Bedford Level,
6 miles. Yeah.
Tell us about that, because that was an interesting piece.
So the Bedford Level is, a scientist, Robotham early on, put a camera on a tripod in the water, just inches over the water, and then his buddy on a little rowboat with a little flag on the back of the rowboat rowed away, and it's 6 miles. What is it? There's a lot of curvature. At 3 miles, it's 6 feet. So it's a lot more than that. I can't do the math in the amount of time that we have, and he could still see it. Now the Globers will say, "Oh, refraction and whatnot." We could see across Lake Michigan. We could see Chicago 50 miles away, and the science tells us it's a mirage. But we got guys. We went on a boat. We put our camera on the mirage, supposedly, and we went 50 miles across the lake, and the mirage never changed. That's impossible. We were seeing the buildings the whole time. There's a million other proofs, and it's all on my website.
All right, flatearthdave.com. You're going to read. You're going to look at that, and people are going to try to take the challenge. You've got the 3 Bitcoins set aside.
Yep.
I will look at it as well, and we'll talk again sometime. Thanks for coming on, Dave. This was Dave Weiss. You're listening to Norm Pattis on the Norm Pattis Show, WICC 600 AM, 107.3 FM, WICC600.com. I wanted to take a couple minutes at the end of our interview with Dave. And Dave did a great job. I'm just not persuaded there's cash value. I mean, whatever the shape of the Earth is, the fact is I will leave this office, hop into my car, head to another office, and my heart will be heavy because I'll be thinking, my abattoir 'tis of thee, sweet land of misery. Of thee I sing, land where the children died, land where the parents cried, from every mountainside let sorrow ring. And I'll be thinking of those sorry sad sacks that we have in office in Connecticut, in every state of the Union, who for 10 years since Sandy Hook, maybe 20 years since Columbine, have been promising to do something about gun violence, and the problem's getting worse. And the problem's getting worse because it's not about guns. It's about us.